in China, there's 1 week of college admissions testing. My understanding is like their equivalent of SATs and ACTs and brings back bad memories for me. But it's they have a week where all students, about 13 million, are taking these exams to try to get into college universities. During this week, China actually made the decision in their country to shut down major chatbots run by like Alibaba and Quen, and for them to not take any questions or answer any questions related to exam taking. And if you compare and contrast that to what happens in the US and you get flooded with like study AI apps and like ChatGPT, well, they'll answer pretty much anything around this, rewriters. It's quite a different perspective that China has. And then if you take another
Totally.
step back, what I find really fascinating is, there's China sending either low cost and in some cases completely free AI, over, over the Pacifics to
Overseas,
us,
yeah.
and it's almost to me seems like a programmatic approach of China trying to dumb down the United States, like an entire generation. Like first with their, special TikTok algorithm, they have one for the US, they have one for China. It's completely different content that goes up. And now it's almost like the same thing for artificial intelligence. Like for Chinese students, like you still got to think for yourself. We're literally going to shut this thing down what like during testing time, while US have at it all the AI you want at dirt cheap, and actually here's the code, do whatever you want with it. So that's what I think is happening.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of dialogue around this just with like basically dumping all of their technology globally and then subsidizing that from the government basically so that, you know, gets TikTok in as many hands as possible, gets the AI in as many hands as possible to influence kind of the global outlook. So it is interesting to see the contrast between their like what they're doing internally within their nation and then what they're doing externally. And it feels like something totally, two entirely different approaches. So
I think they're playing like long game. Like we're playing like years, 5 years. Like they're playing
totally,
decades, generations long game with this.
totally agree. I think that their scope is just so much further,
Yeah.
just on like how they're thinking about, that 100-year time horizon rather than 4 years or the next election, et cetera. So
Yeah, exactly. Even with my own kids, I'm like, I know they're getting computers and more typing is encouraged. This whole summer, I was like pen and paper only. I was like, I don't
totally,
trust anything that shows up,
totally.
written on a computer nowadays. So I was like, you
No,
still have to be
100%.
able to think, or else AI isn't that helpful for you if you can't think for yourself.
Totally. Totally. I think when you treat it as a tool, not as like a crutch, that's when the real power comes from it. But,
For sure.
getting people to actually do that is so hard. So, okay. So let's talk about the Google AI news snippets and how they're crushing news sites. What's happening there?
Yeah, so if anyone's noticed in their Google search results, instead of getting like top links, they usually give you rough like a paragraph of their attempt of giving you the answer of what you're searching for. But I mean, I think it's actually personally a great experience because most things you're searching for is just, it's just an answer. It's not like research. But news sites are being crushed from it because now all the traffic that they used to get and being sent to, and they no longer get that traffic. And organic search to news sites is actually down 55% between 2022 to the same time period in 2025. So roughly, over this 3 year span, is just dropping, and continues to drop. One from people going directly to chatbots, and then Google itself changing the experience. Essentially, the above the fold is almost the AI and maybe like one, two links. And then, of course, you got the ads in there too. So just not as much room for the actual or organic links. Obviously, news companies are not that pleased with this because a lot of them are behind paywalls. Yet Google's able to extract the answer from those pages and give the user what they want without them ever hitting the news site, without ever the news site having a chance one on either the ad revenue that they get or the upsell for, on the paywall. So with Google Snippets and of course the chatbots, they take all of this away and they're suffering in terms of traffic and members.
It's super fascinating to see how there's a lot of dialogue in this right now. I mean, we have this conversation constantly with our clients, basically just like is SEO valuable channel for, to get signups to occur for a software. And it's really interesting. I feel like news and like general information, like all of those sites, like, whether it's or like recipes or that type of thing, et cetera, right? They're being affected most by this. Like if their content monetization strategy previously was running display ads, you're probably being affected. But we've kind of seen the opposite, honestly, in our data of like if it's very bottom of funnel searches, like, best X software for Y outcome, right? We've actually seen that like the traffic is like
Hmm.
pretty consistent. It hasn't been affected really deeply by these like AI chat tools. And so it's kind of interesting. I feel like the more general broad knowledge is where that's all of that's going to get eaten up. Feels like news fits into that. And then the very specific stuff, it's like it's pulling up from that and referencing it still and driving traffic to that still, even if it's doing an AI overview. So anyway, it's kind of interesting to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you there. Like we at AI are not. It's a product, it's a tool, and one that's becoming more and more, timely and top of mind as an issue with AI detection. So we, knock on wood, have not experienced that drop either. But again, we're not a news site, and yeah, I do feel for them. I do feel for them. They're doing the hard work, and Google is just like, yeah, here's the answer, and taking the credit for it.
No, totally. It's super it's super interesting. I feel like this is actually where the internet goes, right? It's like in the long term, it's just going to be probably these big siloed products, and that's going to be the entire kind of like experience for people like online. It's just basically, living within these walled gardens, something we talked about previously. But uh with that said though, talk to me about Getty versus Ability AI and the UK copyright case. And it sounds like there was another copyright one as well. So maybe we go to that one after that.
Yeah, for sure. So the Getty instability AI one, Getty's claiming that their images were used to train Stability's AI image generation models. And so it's usually a hard case to make, but in this case, like, the AI generator was spitting out Getty watermarks on their generated images, so that's a little bit tricky. On top of, we actually had a guest just a couple weeks ago, David Carson, a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he showed, like, in 6 prompts that he's able to recreate famous images in an image generator. But in this case, like, the image generator itself was just spitting out the watermarks of the Getty brand, almost like as proof that he used it. And Midjourney was there was a lawsuit recently, just a day ago, filed against Midjourney by Disney and the Universal brand for using their characters within the model. Like, I think it's a poor kept secret at this point that LLMs and AI need tons and tons of data to go, to power them, to create what they need to create the models, to create the reasoning, and to create the generations of either image, audio, whatever they're trying to create. But reproducing the exact character, the exact person, in some cases the watermark of another brand, probably going a little bit too far. So I get it, you're ingesting a ton of data, but reproducing it exactly, I don't think is the right approach either. It's like the same way as if, Google, like the previous conversation of Google snippets is just giving you the word for word response of the main part of like a paid Wall Street Journal or Business Insider article. Like, that's not right. So, like, essentially, even though it was used for the training, so on the image side and the content generation side, even if it was used, I'm not saying it's good, bad. It's just what's happening. Reproducing it to a T. I understand why these companies are having a hard time with it, but at the same time, AIs are hungry and need more and more data for them to get better and better.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's this double-edged sword where it's like to make the models useful, they have to go extremely broad, but simultaneously, it's like, I think people are starting to understand what these are capable of now, especially from a copyright standpoint. I think you're going to see more and more of these lawsuits come into the focus over the next couple of years. Honestly, sorry, next couple of months.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. When we just publicly launched our AI music detector, and we're including the, identifier of which generator created it. Because if someone's artist is being, recreated, they should know. Like there was a big case with the company Boomy that was used to create tens of thousands of songs, and bots were listening to them for like millions of dollars of payouts on Spotify. So that's not right either. So sometimes like the source, if these models are being used for certain things, and sometimes it's not the model creators, it's the people who are using them for these use cases. It is an important one. On that data hungry piece, I also think I think the progress is gonna slow down quite a bit because there's just not enough data to go around, like new data to power these AI models and the training. And if like research says by some point in 2026, AI generated content actually surpasses that of human generated content. Research says it's around February 2026. And by the end of 2026, it's like 90+% AI generated. So AI models, going back to the training point, their performance, they cannot train on AI generated produced data. It's like proven to be a detriment to the models themselves. So if we're like reaching a peak of the amount of new data and new information and arguably creativity, like have AI models, like are they already reaching like plateaus in a lot of ways, and like what's left is like what you're building on top of it, but not the foundational models themselves. So we'll see what happens too. But if things keep going this way, more and more AI generated data is out there, and not enough human generated, not enough new data and research that the models are not able to actually train against and get better against.
Totally. It's so funny to see, like, this becoming I feel like the biggest, I'm gonna call it a crutch. It's almost just like the thing that's going to hinder the progression of this is just the data that they can source. I know everybody's trying to solve this right now by creating like, artificial environments that the AIs can think and learn in. It's just still not the same. I mean, there's this great presentation that one of the Tesla AI engineers gave where he's like, we can do training on, closed systems or like you're like imagine 3D these 3D worlds that are using like real, physics generation, et
Yep.
cetera. And he's like, but then you get this, and it's like a cow on the back of a motorcycle in India. And he's like, we could never think of this. It would never come up. This would never get into our training data. And you can never recreate what the real world will throw at you. And I don't think people are really ready for that. So, anyways, I just always found that really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, they're right. Like you can't think of everything, and if AI generated content ends up in there, like it's actually makes the models worse. Like they can't go into like inception mode and just use their own generated data to continuously train, or else they would already be doing that and wouldn't have to pay all these companies themselves.
Totally. Talk to me about Anthropic shutting down its AI generated blog. That's super fascinating. Why did they do that?
Yeah, so Anthropic ran it's almost like a test of like dog I actually love it. They're essentially dog fooding their own tool where they were using their own AI, their own product to create a blog that's strictly AI generated. They did have some human oversight on it, but it was AI generated. And then abruptly they shut it down. So, the official response was they were trying to cover like Q&A and customer questions and like repeated questions, but apparently like it wasn't doing the trick. Publicly, they said it was a test, and they just ended up shutting it down, but maybe there's something to be said about like 100% AI generated content. It may not be the answer either. And if like an AI company attempted to do this, they decided to completely be done with it. And then another example I actually recently saw. I don't know if you've been on like the OpenAI blog recently. Essentially, there's the lawsuit that they're in. Every AI company's in a lawsuit. I read the article about him. Essentially, the 75% of the article is in a Q&A format. So I think it's almost like a new writing style specifically for Google snippets and LLMs. So between Claude trying and then shutting down an AI only an AI only blog, while OpenAI is essentially writing content almost like to provide answers for their own chat GPT. And essentially it's in a Q&A format. It's no longer like paragraph this, paragraph that. It's question, bullet point, question, bullet point, answer. So really fascinating to see like how the AI companies, you gotta assume they know something we might not. But if you're paying attention, like one is like we tried AI generated only content and we shut it down. And then the other one is like we write our content. However, this is the format we're now writing it in. It's essentially like a Q&A format. So both quite fascinating and I think maybe pointing towards like what the future of like content writing looks like.
Totally. It's it's so interesting to think about. Like, it's really crazy too. Like I didn't realize there is this human element where they don't want to think that they're reading AI content. Like that's like a massive aspect of it. I think it's just psychologically people aren't there, but we see that within just our data as well. Like if it uses these, you know, identifier words that kind of signal, we'll just see higher bounce rates on the content that we're
For sure.
writing, right? And that dwell time is really important. So it's interesting to see that, you know, they're finding really similar out, you know, really you know, similar outcomes from the work that they're doing. So
Definitely,
um
definitely. While another one is like they're writing it, but they're writing it in a completely different format that, it's not a typical like news site or blog,
yep,
format. Even that news company Axios, hopefully I'm
yep,
pronouncing it correctly, like they write in a similar format now, all of their articles. Bullet point, almost Q&A, almost to try to
totally.
get that Google snippet, almost trying to get that LLM response from their content. And like I went on the OpenAI's response to like a legal case that they had. I think it was the New York Times or whatever, but like the whole article, 75% of the article Q&A bullet point format.
So yeah, it's funny. I have a friend who's experimenting with this, basically creating blogs that are entirely like dedicated to AI content. They're not even accessible by the like user, like you can't navigate to them like
Oh,
on the site. It's largely just there to create like basically fact type style documents so that they will show up, you know, hypothetically higher within any AI search. It's really just to create structured data that AI seems to really favor and like, which is these listicle style formats, which is fascinating. So
yeah.
it's so funny, man. It just
it-
feels like the same thing, just cycling again. Like we're back to listicles.
That's
That's
right.
how to win.
For sure. We recently redid our API docs and we include it's not for people, it's for machines and a special like for in a special format. So like all the vibe coding apps and AI can like easily digest all of our API docs. There's the human readable
Totally.
format, and then it's like if you just change like the dot whatever it is, and it's like now it's for machine and they know how to get to it and then they breeze through it. So yeah, for our AI detection APIs, that's exactly like the approach that we took. Yeah, it's like here's for the machines to be able to consume this, and then here's for the people.
Oh, totally. That's that's amazing. I know we just ran up on time.
Cool.
Just we'll I think end it there totally, and then I think that we got more than
Do you
enough
wanna do you
to
wanna
do
cover
this
the
week. So
Elon Trump stuff?
yeah,
Or
actually, yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that one. Let's
no,
do
no,
that one
it's
real
up to you.
fast.
It's entirely if it's
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I think it's a great. I mean, there's the news is going off about this, so I think it's a great thing to you know piggyback on top of. So
yeah.
talk to me
Well,
about what's going on there.
the Trump and Elon, a falling out and I guess rivalry now is incredibly entertaining, but but really complicated. But what's complicated and more, especially online, are the deepfakes being created specifically of Trump and the things that are being said. I'll be 100% honest. One of them in the first 5 seconds fooled me. Like I thought he's standing on the podium, like he starts talking. What gave it away is about halfway through, he starts talking about baby mamas. I'm like, all right, like that's that's a bit too much. But if you're watching them and I don't even know what the attention span of people is online. You might not be getting 40, even the 45 seconds through it. So you might be seeing and one of them starts off with Trump saying, "I'm banning Teslas in the United States." Another one is like accusing like drug use and like crazy things, and they're all deep fakes. They're all completely
I
fake.
saw reports on this from like real news sources. That's so crazy that it's all deep fake.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these like I feel for the news sources because I'm sure they have less staff, less people like quote unquote on the ground. So they're just on social media, and everyone's has to be first to report or quick to report. So
Yep.
before you ever do any fact check is a dirty word now, but if you ever do any AI detection or any kind of like even questioning whether it's real, everyone's trying to publish this. There's been a few times where we've actually contacted news stories, and they took down articles because I'm like, "You're reporting on something fake." Like, a year ago,
It's
there was,
fascinating.
fake news around because of an AI-generated image that the X building, when Elon took it over, put up a sign at the top,
Yep,
GFY, go yourself. And, like, it's complete and people, of course, ate it up. It's like, look what Elon did, he put a huge sign up. I even went to San Francisco, like, 2 hours later. I'm like, I was asked me, I was like, "Hey, wanna grab lunch in Mission today?" And I was like, "Let me just stop by 7th and Mission," and we were like, "Yeah, it's not there." Like, and this is all it
totally.
took to just confirm it instead of, like, quickly reporting on an AI generated image, and the same thing is happening. It's like, Trump's if deepfake Trump is saying, like, "I'm banning Tesla because of the Elon situation," and I think you're gonna have, like, real effects, like, it's funny, but it's also, can have effect on the stock market, could have an effect on, like, people's perception of things, and people might not even ever get to the end of the videos if there's some kind of disclosure. It's so, people are like,
Totally.
"Oh, like, did you see this?" And then it just runs away like wildfire.
Oh,
So
for
more and
sure.
more of that is definitely happening, and we've been sharing the detection reports like, "Hey, it's a deep fake for both video and the audio of it."
Oh, that's fascinating, man. It's so crazy. I feel like there's all of these Instagram accounts that are starting to pop up that are it's basically just like very identifiable and like individuals that are just saying why and it's really just they're just view farming, right? Like that's what
Yeah,
it's turning into is like this economy is just especially with this For You page content, you just kind of they pay out based off of how engaged you can get their audience to be, and so that content is just naturally going to proliferate. It's from a personal perspective, more and more, I'm like, I trust nothing online, like whatsoever. It's all just, you
yeah.
know, marketing all the way down, or so, or
Uh,
deep fakes all the way down, right? So,
I
anyway,
hear you. I'm more of an observer what's happening. I actually keep the Wall Street Journal app on my phone, so if I actually, like, wanna see the news, like, that's my one source. Everything I read online, I always think from a perspective of, is it an angle for AI or not? Or is this something we can help, like, detect or something, like, we can try to get the truth from? But, yeah, I'm with you. Online is a tricky place to tell what's real, what's not.